Not gonna lie, pretty sketchy. I wouldn't want to walk here at night. We step back into the backyard here. Tons of stuff. Now, I don't know exactly where this is going to end up. When you're trying to rent this out, what picture are you going to be showing to people? Like, this whole backyard has to be completely hauled away. You got to start somewhere, but just know what you're starting with if you choose to start with a C-class neighborhood. All right, this property walkthrough is going to be a little bit shocking, but it's kind of near and dear to my heart because this is the neighborhood that I first bought my rental property, I don't know, 27 years ago. I cut my teeth. It's a C-class neighborhood. It's, not gonna lie, pretty sketchy. I wouldn't want to walk here at night. There's a property that got torn down just across the street. There's a fence around there. You can see that this property here, there's actually people living here, believe it or not. But this is the property that I haven't even walked through yet. We were hired to take over this property, you know, get the tenants in place, things like that. But there is a vacant property in the back, and I want to see what the owner's contractor has been doing. So let's go take a look. So as you can see, this is, I don't want to say pretty typical for this area, but I mean, it's rough. This is C-class, right? And you have a stuccoed building that has, the grass is cut, so that's good. But again, you see just a lot of clutter. This is kind of, I don't want to say the way people live, but this is very, very indicative of this type of neighborhood. And so I will say screening. If you choose to buy properties, obviously I was very lucrative doing this. I built up to 43 properties and 75 doors in 10 years exactly in this neighborhood. And so that is why we as a management company are so good at managing these types of properties and obviously others, because it all comes down to tenant screening. But today we're going to be showing you on the inside. So let's go take a look. Obviously, when we're talking about things here, you know, you've got the houses that are pretty narrow together. There isn't any grass here, but you know, you still have to keep up with the weeds and things like that. This is a front to back duplex. You could even consider it I guess a side-by-side almost, because when you're talking about who does what, the front yard would be for the front tenant and the backyard is going to be for unit 2 here. Now again, these are going to be the small details. How much do you do, right? You could see it used to be mounted here. It got torn off, and now they just used a piece of galvanized strapping for this because the law says here in Manitoba, Canada, that you have to have a working mailbox. You can see here, we've got somebody's attempt at putting in a wheelchair ramp, but of course, there's not a real railing here. There might have been at one point. So this isn't to code. We have boarded up windows. We step back into the backyard here. Tons of stuff. Now, I don't know exactly where this is going to end up. You can see that this is probably a counter from hopefully the inside. These are the types of neighborhoods that you have to watch out in the grass for needles and other things. But when you're trying to rent this out, what picture are you going to be showing to people? Like, this whole backyard has to be completely hauled away, right? We've got remote controls, vacuums, right? Old furniture, old broken lawnmower. This stuff's probably been here for years. The shed, I mean, all that's going to do is invite squatters and people who want to maybe hang out there in the winter. So you've got, I don't even know what's hanging from the wires there. Probably a fire hazard too. Old furniture. So let's go inside and see what the renovations are doing. All right, so this is actually not bad. Now, when we got here, the painter was actually just finishing a coat of paint in here. So, you know, if you had gone like this and you weren't outside, you'd probably think, oh, what, not a bad unit. Very typical of the properties that Garrett is managing. But you can't all have A-class properties. Obviously, somebody who chooses to buy in this neighborhood is buying because it's cheaper. I mean, let's just say what it is, cheaper mortgage, more cash flow. So on a C-class property, how are you going to make this work? How are you going to make sure that your property is protected and it's going to be appreciating in value? I mean, just right here, you can just see, you know, This is probably a knife or a machete or a hatchet mark, almost guaranteed. Somebody's trying to come in here, and that's just, there could be bullet holes. I've seen lots of things in this neighborhood, and it hasn't really gotten that much better. There's a property across the street, like I mentioned, that looks like it's being torn down, probably was set on fire. So somebody's going to end up putting a newer building there, but it's going to come down to who are you attracting, what kind of picture are you showing them, and again, like that backyard, this landlord is going to have to really do some cleanup. So layout-wise, I believe we're standing in what you would call a living room. We have a small bedroom on this side. We'll take a quick look here. So this is sort of like I guess a one-bedroom unit. So I would classify this as a larger one-bedroom unit. And then we've got a small kitchen. Okay, now they have cut this out, which does open it up, as you can see, right? That's what we call a pass-through. I hope that this is not load-bearing. So landlords, investors, if you're choosing to do something like this, just make sure. It looks nice, but for all I know, this could just be they cut out the beam. Maybe they didn't put a header in here. So if you're going to do that, just make sure you consult engineering. And then we have your, I don't want to say typical. So we've got should I be afraid to open this fridge? Okay. My biggest pet peeve. Now, this is actually a brand new fridge. I can see that there's actually still tape. This looks like it was just delivered, and the hinge is on the wrong side. So all that's going to happen here, depending also on the tenant who gets annoyed, I mean, you just can't, you can see here that there's a handle. We just got to spend some time and get these hinges reversed, okay? Like the cabinets are okay, but then you've got this right here, right? It doesn't match. What does it really say? Not much. Can you find one of these doors? It's hard to say, right? They obviously did this because they had no choice, but you can check things like the refit store, some old, maybe go on Kijiji or up here in Canada, Facebook Marketplace and things like that to try to find something. Now, at what point do you say to your future tenant, this is acceptable? Because if it is, then you have to price it accordingly. And if you're pricing it accordingly, you're probably not cash flowing. Now, rents are pretty good, even in this neighborhood, because the vacancy rate is low. But if you're buying a property like this, you have to isolate yourself and make sure that you're actually keeping renovations and keeping the rents and buying a property with rents that are kind of middle of the road. I would never buy a C-class property, or any property for that matter, with super high rents in mind, because if reality hits, the market drops. We're at a 1% vacancy rate at the time of this recording. And if it goes back up to 3, 4, or 5%, which is very similar to most markets, maybe the rents that you're getting to even make this cash flow don't make sense anymore. So we have another bedroom here, but it's not really a bedroom because the only bathroom is right here. So that's the problem. This is kind of an unused space. It's kind of useless. And a lot of landlords are going to say, well, this is a 2-bedroom. Well, it can't be a 2-bedroom when you're sleeping and somebody has to pass through here to get into this room. Now, the bathroom itself, I guess we'll talk about layout after. Again, fresh paint changes everything, right? The small details, this looks, I think this is new, or fairly new, because we did see that old vanity out front, although it's hard to say. This looks a little used, but it's relatively new. We've got a cracked mirror, paint and dirt all over the cover plates. I think I've done other videos where I've said, just spend the 15 cents and put new cover plates in, right? The light bulb should obviously have to be changed. We've got an old shower head here with a hand shower, and then, the bathtub, if you want to zoom in here, this bathtub is probably not being able to be cleaned. I don't even want to put, normally I stand in the bathtubs when I'm doing these property walkthroughs. Anyway, so paint is the first step. They put some new flooring down, that's great. Obviously they have to do a little bit more, but in all fairness, the painters just just left. Okay, so they're mid-reno. Now you can see behind me that all of these windows are boarded up. That is actually code here in the city of Winnipeg, province of Manitoba. Now, it does say that it has to be boarded up. They're probably boarding this up to prevent people from breaking in, but at the same time, if we were doing it to code, it'd have to be like 5/8 actual like plywood with no holes in it and painted and primed on one side. And then you have to actually have a boarding permit, believe it or not. So I think they're doing this just to prevent the windows being broken. And then they're going to lift it off when it's probably going to be ready to be shown. Okay, again, small things that I'm still talking about is cover plates. Go ahead and just spend the 15 cents. Let's talk layout for a second. This is interesting because how do you get maximum value out of rental property? And it's by the number of bedrooms. It doesn't matter whether it's A, B, or C class. This property, a landlord might be tempted to say it's a 2-bedroom, but it's really not. It's a 1-bedroom with a bonus space that happens to lead into a bathroom. So if I were being creative, what I would do is I would actually put a wall right here, because what we're standing in here is a decent sized living room, okay? But what I would do is I would put a wall, and again, we're talking about 10-foot span, 8 feet tall. What is that? Maybe $100 worth of 2x4s, 6 pieces of drywall, so $300 in materials. And the painter was already here, so it wouldn't have cost that much more to paint 2 walls. You've got a bedroom door. You can get those at Home Depot, pre-hung for $100. So for basically under $500, you put a wall right here. This now becomes bedroom number 2. Bedroom number 1, bedroom number 2, okay? We have this as its own eat-in kitchen. Now you could get cute and you could put a little counter here if somebody wanted to sit, gets breakfast nook. And then this little room here, instead of becoming a bonus room, this is where you might, again, you're kind of reaching, but you could put a couch in here, call it a very small living room. TV can go here, but you always walk through the living room to get into the bathroom, right? It's not the ideal layout, but at least now you have a legitimate 2-bedroom unit, okay? So that's going to be my biggest suggestion for the landlord. If we decide to manage this property, I haven't decided yet. My poor videographer, he got here 10 minutes before me and was taking some B-roll, and with just listening to all the people shouting and the sirens going in the area, it's kind of just, you kind of just get used to it. But yeah, anyways, this would be a very, very nice bedroom. Yes, it doesn't have a closet, but as I've said in other videos, to be a bedroom, you want a heat register, which we have. You need fire escape, which we have. And you don't necessarily need a closet, but you easily could put a closet somewhere, right? You could build a closet over here into the corner. You could buy something from IKEA and put it in permanently, or not have a closet at all. But at least this is big enough to be able to put a fair-sized bed in here, okay? So I think what I'll cap this off is layout, layout, layout. Doesn't matter whether you're going to be in its A, B, or C class neighborhood, but you're gonna have to concentrate on the outside. If you choose to buy a C class property, the outside is actually where you're gonna be spending the majority of your energy. There's gonna be vandalism, graffiti, people dumping things, tearing down your fence. It's gonna be constant. And then if it's vacant, you're gonna have constant break-ins, squatters, things like that. But again, I cut my teeth here. I was very successful in C-class neighborhoods for well over a decade, actually 2 decades. And really you gotta start somewhere. But just know what you're starting with if you choose to start with a C-class neighborhood. Now, the biggest thing that you have to remember, it all comes down to screening. So if this video interested you at all, just know that we do have a tenant screening masterclass. We've got some free resources. Everything's in the show notes. Just go ahead and click. We also have the My First Keys community where we actually discuss with experienced landlords all around the world exactly how to manage C-class properties like this. Thanks for watching today.